Hi friends, Shayla here. So let's talk about my favorite things and some stats from the month of September. Upon filming, this is the first day of October. I am doing weekly wrap-ups now, so if you want in-depth details on what I'm reading when it comes to everything, you can look to the weekly wrap-ups for those kinds of details. This video has turned into kind of a roundup of the month, where I go over the stats for the month, and then I'll go over the star ratings for everything for the month. Like, not physically showing you, but I'll just kind of sum up the star ratings as well. And then I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books and manga that I read each month. This is just kind of an excuse for me to fangirl about things that I've read, and just another excuse for me to talk about some things that I'm really loving. So that's what this video is. I stole this kind of concept from Jen over at the Book Refuge. So I can't say it's original, but I think it works really well for me and how much I'm reading, so that I can give you guys more details on what I'm reading every month and talk a little bit more about my favorites with you guys. So let's go over the stats to start. So if I look over to the left, my left, your right here, it's going to be me looking at the stats because I have them on a big image right here, so that what's inserted here for you guys is just right here for me. So this month I read 43 books, 52 volumes of manga, 6 of those books were audiobooks, and the number of pages read was 23,880 with a yearly page count of 151,746. I don't know why. I get some sort of sick fascination with that number, but it's kind of cool to track. It has had me realizing that I really want to slow down next year, but that's that. So let's go over... I track how much I'm reading in the core 4 demographics for manga, so let's go over those real quick. So I read 15 volumes of shonen manga. These are ones geared towards teenage males. I read 20 volumes of shoujo manga, which is geared towards teenage female readers, which tends to be most of what I read because they tend to be very romance-centered and very cute. I read 12 volumes of seinen manga. These are typically geared towards adult men, or they're just kind of geared towards adults in general. And then I read 4 josei volumes, which are technically geared towards adult women. They do tend to be a little more romance heavy. They do have some slice of life elements as well. So there are the stats that you're used to seeing from me every month. So let's go over star ratings, because this is something new that I'm doing, starting with these videos. So for the books, I had 3 3-star reads, 7 3.5-star reads, 21 4-star reads. This tends to be the really good books, not the above average books, but these are the good books. I would still recommend them, but they just didn't bring anything new to the table, I guess, is the easiest way to describe how I rate a 4-star. And then I've got 7 4.5-star titles. These ones are just shy of the mark of 5. And then my 5-star reads, I had 5 of those this month, and I will be talking about all of them in short order. Let's talk star rating for the manga. I tend to favor 4 and 5-star with my manga because I rarely pick up anything I don't think I'm gonna love. So this month I had 1 2-star, I had 3 3.5-star, 24 4-star volumes, 3 4.5-star, and 17 5-star. I did read a lot of my favorite series. They had new volumes. I finished up a couple series, some things like that. So that's why those numbers look very high. But again, I do tend to favor 4 and 5 stars with my manga reads, just because I really pick up anything I'm not interested in. The 2-star was the first volume of Honey Hunt, because this first volume was really irritating. But the way the series continues, I enjoy the rest of the series. I just did not enjoy the first volume. So with that said, let's get into my favorites. So I am going to start with the books. So if you're only here for the manga, there is a timestamp for you, and you can just go jump to the manga favorites that I'm going to talk about. But I hope you guys will stick around for all of it, because I care a lot about all of these, obviously. So this is just my excuse to kind of sit here and fangirl with you about them. So I do have one honorable mention for the books, because I'm a cheater and I could not help myself. So for that, it is Beauty Tempts the Beast by Lorraine Heath. This one I ended up giving 4.5 stars this month. It was not quite perfect, but this is a really solid Beauty and the Beast inspired historical, in which we are following Althea. Althea's kind of, you know, she's that prim and proper, perfect lady, destined to marry a lord, all those kinds of things. Her father's betrayal ended up leaving her whole entire family penniless. So one of her brothers is off making really stupid decisions. The other has been left to babysit her. She kind of devises her own plan. There's a man named Benedict Trillo. The Trillos are kind of centered in this particular Lorraine Heath series, I guess. This seems to be the last one in the series. I haven't read any of the others, so you can read them on your own and you're not going to feel too lost. But anyways, Benedict, he runs a brothel house. And he wants to teach all of the ladies how to get by in society and have more from their lives than laying on their backs to get it. You know what I mean? Benedict Trillo approaches Althea and suggests that she come and teach these women how to act more appropriately in society because they're all rough around the edges. And she says, only if you teach me how to seduce a man. And so she ends up living in the brothel house. She sends the other brother to find the other brother and protect him. So she's kind of looked after by Benedict or Ben. And it is a Beauty and the Beast style romance from there. Obviously, he wants Althea. He doesn't want her to become this great courtesan like she has plans for. And, you know, it's one of those things where she feels ruined by society. And so there's only one route for her. And through her relationship with Benedict, she learns that there's more. He learns there's more to life than what he thought as well. It's so good. I'm definitely going to be deep diving some Lorraine Heath because I really loved the writing in this. And I highly suggest picking up this book and this series if you haven't. This book came out late September, so it's only been out, I think, since Tuesday. So you should be able to pretty easily find it in a bookstore these days. All right, so let's get into my official 5-star reads, favorite reads of the month. Like I said, this was a very close not 5. It was almost perfect, but it just wasn't quite there. So I think it was her insistence on being a courtesan part that made it drop just a tiny bit for me. But really solid story, has lots of elements of Beauty and the Beast. They meet up in the library each evening for their lessons, and it's steamy to boot. I really loved it. All right, so on to the 5 stars. First up, All Scott and Bothered by Kerrigan Byrne. This is from her Red Rogues series. I'm not 100% sure what it's actually called, but the first, it's about a group of friends who are the Red Rogues, 3 women with red hair, and they are sassy and, a little bit spinster-aged, I guess. They're older women, unmarried, and this is book 2 in the series in which we're following... I want to make sure I say the names right. So we have Cassius, and Cassius is the Lord Chief Justice. Just make sure I got his title right, in the High Court. And he has started to have stirrings in his body for his brother's new wife's friend, Cecilia. Cecilia found out recently that her aunt left her a piece of property that happens to also look like a brothel on the outside, but on the inside, they're actually saving women and giving them a safe place to be when they have nowhere else to go. So it's kind of like a women's shelter staged as kind of a brothel type situation. And so Cassius's goal is to take down this brothel because he knows there's nefarious deeds going about there. And he finally gets to meet the lady of the house. I forget what they call her. But he's supposed to finally meet with the lady of the house, and it happens to be Cecilia. So he starts to have really mixed feelings when he starts to have bodily stirrings for Cecilia in this costume of the Madam of the House, and also for Cecilia. And so there's that whole, unknowing as to who it is kind of banter a little bit. But this is really so much more than that. Cassius and Cecilia have some of the best banter I've seen. But Cassius definitely has 2 sides of him. He has his Lord Chief Justice side where he thinks he knows what's best and what's right and how that got clouded for him. And and Cecilia's just This round, voluptuous woman, the cover doesn't show it, but Cecilia is plus size, and I loved that he appreciated her body and that she was okay in her own skin, and she ate what she wanted and, you know, wore what she wanted, and it was just glorious. I really loved this a whole lot. I really enjoy Kerrigan Byrne. I read a ton of Kerrigan Byrne this month, but this one was definitely a 5-star. It stood out to me. I really loved it. Highly recommend this series. Like I say, I don't remember the actual name of the series, but the first book in the series is How to Lose a Duke in 10 Days. These do tend to have, there's a shared experience that the Red Rogues have from the first book, and it can be triggering, so look up that trigger first. I believe I put it in my Goodreads review, so you can look that up. My Goodreads is always linked down below. So they have that shared experience, and then from there, they all kind of lived their own lives. And Cecilia seemed the most lost, so she finally found her purpose with this women's shelter, and it's glorious, and it's beautiful, and I loved this a whole lot. It had a lot going for it, and I could just gush about it forever. So instead, you guys just go read it for me. Okay? Okay. All right. Next, we have Christmas on Reindeer Road. This was my favorite Christmas book that I read this month, and I read like 11 or 12. So Christmas on Reindeer Road features Mallory, and Mallory we met in the previous book. This is the second book in the Highland Falls series by Debbie Mason, and she's always kind of been down on her luck. Her dad was the town drunk. She became a nurse, moved away, and ended up marrying an older gentleman and kind of caring for him in his latter years. And people just thought she married him for his money when she really just genuinely cared about him as a human and took care of him. It was more like a nurse-patient style marriage rather than like a marriage of love. Though I do believe the marriage was consummated. I don't remember for sure. Maybe not. But anyways, one of the ex-wives of this man finds a loophole and basically rips everything away from Mallory, including his 2 teenage sons, who the mom just doesn't care about her kids. So the first wife is the one who ends up with the teenage boys. And Mallory gets a call from her saying, I don't want the kids, you take them. So all of a sudden she's had 2 teenage boys tossed upon her. She kind of lost her job. So she's moving back to Highland Falls to kind of pick up the pieces and give the boys someplace safe and away from where they've been. They'd been living in London at a boarding school, and to give them kind of a stable environment. We have the sheriff of the town named Gabriel. His wife has passed away. He has 4 children, I believe. And he left his like adrenaline chasing job and came back to Highland Falls himself. So they're both they've gone away from Highland Falls, they've come back, and it's their single parent style romance, and it's glorious, and it all centers around Christmas. There is one little boy, what's his name? Why can't I remember his name? He's the sweetest, most adorable human. Teddy. His name is Teddy. Anyways, he's the youngest son of Gabriel, and Teddy is so cute. I love Teddy with my whole heart and soul. He is part of why I loved this book so much was Teddy, and I really loved the relationship that Mallory and Teddy started to have, and Gabriel and Teddy. Gabriel tries to be a good dad to all of his boys, and it's glorious. I love it so very much. It's just a single parent romance at its prime, all centered around Christmas. So yes, it's so good. I love it so much. Next up is a recent read. I haven't talked about this in a wrap up yet, so I'm excited to talk with you guys about it. And that is The Highland Layered by Amy Jarecki. I just finished this Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night. Maybe Monday night. I don't remember. No, Tuesday night. Because this is what I was reading on the romance booktuber live read-in that was on Izzy's channel. I'll leave it linked to the cards for you guys. But this is a book, and we're following a woman named Emma Grant. Emma has been blind since birth, and so she has always lived in a very small, contained environment where she knew exactly where she was going and was able to get around the easiest. So her brother kept her very sheltered and protected. Most of the world didn't even know she existed till I think a year before the start of this book. And at that time, the only person who knew about her was the laird of a neighboring clan named Ciar MacDougall. And Ciar, or that's the only way I know how to say his name, the Laird, CR. He always thought she was a very bonny lass and wanted to give her the attention, but he was afraid that his friend would never let him have it. Never let him have her. And it is so sweet because Emma basically chases him. She loves the kindness that CR shows her. He doesn't make her feel less or like she's unworthy because of her blindness. At this period in time, a lot of people thought it was like a curse or that she was a demon because she was blind. And so she's dealt with ignorant muttering recently, and CR just always made her feel safe. And he shows her a different perspective in life. Anyways, circumstances start to happen and he ends up arrested. And she finds out and she goes to rescue him on his own because one thing he did before this happened. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. They went down to kind of like the stables, and one of the stable boys had some dogs. And she fell in love with the one dog that was left for sale, and it was like a 9-month-old puppy. But the stable hand had been working with him and training him, and he's a water dog. And so CR saw how much Emma loved this dog. So when Emma's sister-in-law said, no, the dog won't make the journey home with us, you can't have it, he ignores her and gets her the dog anyway. And the dog basically ends up being like this seeing eye dog, which the way it all went down was still very like perfect for its time. But at the same time, it like worked really well to help Emma do some amazing things. Like go break C.R. McDougal out of jail, and it's fantastic. And from there, they're kind of on the run. So they have this whole like shared quarters, close proximity thing going on too. And it's childhood friends to lovers, and oh, it's just so good. And I feel like the blind representation is done really well because there comes a point where he takes her to his keep, and it's shortly after they arrive. He hasn't been able to show her around yet. And like not even around like the room where she'll sleep, and he got called away, and so she like tried to get around her room, but the servants had just haphazardly put all of her stuff in the room, and so she ends up like tripping and falling on the floor, and she's bleeding and she can't get up. I mean, the dog can't get her up, and so he comes in and he finds her like that. And he's just so upset with himself and with his servants and all those kinds of things. So, like, they don't glamorize her blindness. And I love that. I feel like they honored how a blind person would feel in that situation. Because the other thing is she normally has a cane, but her cane was still packed away because they literally just dropped off the luggage. And, like, her lady's maid that normally helps her around wasn't available. She was off with the servants because he didn't think he was going to be called away, so he thought he would be with her the whole time. And it was just all the circumstances, things just piled up. And naturally, because she gets around so well in places she's familiar with, people forget that she still needs help. And so she had this humbling moment, and he had this humbling moment with her. And it was just so beautiful. I love this book a whole lot, and I highly recommend reading this one. Again, this one's actually not even out yet. This one comes out October 13th, I want to say. But it's the second week in October is when this one comes out. And you guys pre-order it or get a hold of it when it comes out. It is so good and definitely one of my favorite reads of September. All right, next up we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. You're going to see this probably on a lot of people's favorites list because, man, this is the fat representation we deserve. And well, not the plus size representation we deserve. So we're following two characters. We're following Marcus. And Marcus is a famous actor. He's been working in this like Greek gods inspired TV show for a long time based on a book series. But the author and he feel like the show has butchered the original content of the story. And so he actually writes fanfic for this show that he's on. And if anybody ever found out, he would be in a whole heap of trouble. And then we have April. April is a longtime fan of the show that Marcus is on, has had a crush on him, obviously, and writes fanfic about him and his love interest on the show. And it's steamy fanfic. And so she's been working on her confidence because she had family who kind of tore her down all the time. And she's finally feeling confident. So she puts on one of her cosplays for this character that she loves, the female character, not Marcus's character. So Marcus's love interest. And she posts it to the Twitter. She doesn't post her face, but she posts the rest of her body in the cosplay. And for, like, just for work privacy purposes more than anything. And, you know, it starts to go the rounds on Twitter, and, you know, cosplay Twitter can be pretty toxic when it comes to plus size representation. And so one of these douche canoes tags Marcus in the post and just says, you know, horrible, awful things. And Marcus is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I think she's beautiful. And the guy's like, oh, come on, don't be the nice guy. You can be honest with us. And Marcus is like, no, I'm serious. And then he, like, tags her in the comment and says, will you go on a date with me? And this goes viral. So April and Marcus go on a date because of this. What they find out on the date is that they have been online friends in this fanfic community for 2 years. And sadly, at this point, Marcus doesn't tell her. But he does try to cut off the other online personality, so I have to honor that for him. But he still wasn't honest with April. And so that is the main crux of this story. But the way the relationship builds and grows is really sweet and really cute. He kind of blows it on the first date and does some, like, not great, like, he just isn't himself, and she can tell. And so she doesn't even think he has a, like, she doesn't think they'll go on another date. But obviously, you know, things happen and they start to actually date, and it's really sweet because the show that he was on has ended, so they basically just spend all their time together, like when she's not at work, and it's really cute. I actually really like the conversation being had in this, and then the resolution at the end. I do wish there was a little more groveling. That would probably be my only complaint about it. But it was still really good. Still a solid 5-star. I'm definitely going to be reading more Olivia Dade, and I love this a whole lot. And then last but not least, for the favorite books portion of this video, is Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. I have loved all of the installments in the Hot and Hammered series. I did love Her or Lose Her. Not quite as much as Fix Her Up and this one, but I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole trilogy as a whole. And in this one, we're following Wes. And Wes is the guy that we met in Love Her or Lose Her. He comes into town, he's 23, and he starts sassing Bethany, I believe is her name. Yes, Bethany Castle, who is the older sister of Georgie from the previous book. And Bethany is kind of a control freak. She's an interior designer and very good at what she does. So her home looks like a showroom. And what happens is Wes, the reason why he's in town is he's looking after his niece. His sister kind of just like took off because she couldn't handle life. And she does this from time to time, I guess. So he came in and has just been taking care of his niece as if she were his own. And it's just almost this like single parent romance style thing with Wes and Bethany. But there's another part to this. So Bethany has been working on doing her own like house flip for a long time. She's finally bought the property. She's finally ready to go on it. And so she tells her older brother, who's the main part of their family company, that she's going to do this. And he's like, when are you going to do this? Like on your own. You don't even have a crew. And Wes is like, I'll be on her crew. And so he becomes the foreman and hires some guys, and they want to get going on this flip. But what happens is some like TV exec finds out, and so they decide to turn it into a TV show, and she has 3 weeks to flip this house that is in shambles, where her brother is just kind of, you know, cosmetically fixing his current project. And so the flip is much more like time constraint for Bethany than it is for her brother. I believe his name's Steven, if I remember right. But anyways, so Wes and Bethany are basically spending 24/7 together. except when he has to go home and take care of his niece, but she starts to come into that relationship as well. And they start to date, and it's so cute, and I love this a whole lot. As always with Tessa Bailey, things are steamy. Woo! Woo! Honestly, Olivia Dade, spoiler alert, that was crazy steamy too, and that was glorious. But this is Tessa Bailey does smut a certain way. It's always kind of like dirty, filthy, foul, but at the same time, you're like, normally I would be offended by everything coming out of your mouth, but I'm really okay right now. So, yes. And I think Bethany might even say that to Wes. I don't remember for sure. But anyways, I loved this a whole lot. And I really like Tessa Bailey. I'm sorry, guys. Yes, her guys are typically alpha male AF, but you know what? I'm okay with that. A little alpha male never hurt anybody. All right, let's move on to some of my favorite manga reads for the month. All right, so let's talk about a new series that I ended up falling in love with, and that is A Devil and Her Love Song. This one's by Miyoshi Tomori. And in this one, we're following a girl named Maria. Maria got kicked out of Catholic school for punching a priest, I think. I think that's the reason why. Anyways, there was some sort of altercation at her previous school, and so she's now transferred to a public school, and she looks kind of rough around the edges, but she's like beautiful but intimidating looking. She kind of has RBF. And from there, she has a really sweet side, and she loves to sing. And two guys, Shin and Yusuke, hear her singing, and their opinion of her changes. And so it's about their friendship, potential relationship with one of them eventually, and just kind of what happens when you move into a new school. It's definitely dramatic. There are people with feelings who haven't admitted feelings, so they're being jerkish and all those kinds of things. But honestly, like, I really loved this. The art is really, really nice as well. I mean, I don't know why people don't talk about this series. I'm definitely going to be collecting the rest of it because I absolutely loved this. And this was a gift from my friend Maeve over at Maeve Ever Reading. She'll be linked down below. But yes, we love Maeve in this house, and she's the sweetest and gave me this for my birthday. All right, up next, y'all have been hearing me gush about this for a while. It's Yona of the Dawn 26. This comes out on the 6th. My bookstore had it early, so I have a copy in my hands. And confession time has freaking finally happened. Ah! It was everything. I cried. I screeched even louder than I just did, to the point where it startled my cats. And I mean, we're 26 volumes into a series. I can only say so much. But the dragons are present when that happens. And it's glorious. It's perfect. I love it so much. I mean, I love Yona anyway. Yona will always be one of my favorites. I'm like tearing up thinking about it. I might have to reread it again. At least that chapter. Because it's the final chapter in this volume. And it's everything. And I love it so very much. And there's a giant blushing Yona in the very end, and it's just everything. So basically, this kind of wraps up the current arc that we were in the overarching story. We've been spending a lot of time with a particular kingdom, and that wraps up in this. And then we get that glorious moment, and then the volume ends, and I need volume 27 already, and I love it with my whole heart and soul, guys. You know that. And yes, please read Yona of the Dawn if you're not, because it feeds my soul in the best way, and it will feed yours too. All right, next up, let's talk about a BL that I ended up really loving this month, and that is 7 Days, Monday to Sunday. So this is a story in which we're following two teenage boys. One is a third year, one is a first year. The first year's name is Toji, and Toji basically says yes to the first person to ask him out on Monday. And he'll date them for a week, and if he doesn't fall in love with them, he breaks up with them. So, third year Yuzuru finds out about this, and he has seen him in archery club, so they'd seen each other in passing, and had always kind of noticed him, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to ask him out. I'm going to see how this goes. And he did it out he asked him out kind of as a joke, but Toji took it seriously. And so this is about their week of dating and getting to know one another, and it is glorious, and it is beautiful, and I loved it. Because there's a lot more to Toji's story than you're led to believe in the beginning, and I love it so very much. The way it all plays out is perfect, and someone even ripped off the plot and wrote a book about it. That's how good it is, but I love the manga a whole lot. And again, the art. Where's a good panel here? It's kind of a wide variety of the art style there. But I really enjoy the art style, so I highly recommend checking this one out. Okay. Again, if you know me, you know this would have been on this list, and that is A Bride Story Volume 12. Our lady lovers are back, obviously. And this kind of gives us little snippets of everybody that we've met so far at this point. We do spend quite a bit of time with these ladies. But, like, there's a couple of chapters about what people in this time period of Turkestan, which is like early 1900s, early 1800s. Anyways, it's hundreds of years ago. It's how they spent their time when there was nothing to do. You know, us, we would read a book or watch TV or something. So what do these people who don't have easy access to books and don't have television do with their spare time? So there's a couple of chapters on that. There's a chapter about a woman who takes really good care of her hair just for her husband because he's the only one who will ever see it. Because in this time and culture, they don't show their hair. They keep it all covered. And so she takes immaculate care of her hair for the sake of her husband. And it's really sweet and really cute. And I really loved it. And then obviously we have, what's his name? Oh, Mr. Smith. We catch up with Mr. Smith and his crew and get a lot of information about that. That's part of the overarching story that connect all the volumes together. And then we spend time with our lady lovers. And they spend lots of time at the bathhouse. Lots and lots of time. And it's glorious and it's beautiful. And as always with anything Kaoru Mori, it's beautiful. I mean, the art is just some of my favorite. And this is historical. We do have an age gap romance that we're dealing with here. But and it's an older woman, younger man situation. He's very young, though. So he's actually off with her brother, kind of learning to become more of a man and growing up a little bit. And he knows that they can't move further with their marriage until he can prove himself as a man to her. And it's really sweet. I really love this a whole lot. They're so sweet. Anyways, yes, I can gush about A Bride Story forever, and y'all know that. So just go read it because it is one of my favorite pieces of manga ever. All right, and last but not least, again, another one that's kind of hard to talk about is the Rosa Versailles. I read Omnibuses 2 and 3 in the month of September, and again, this is historical, dramatic shoujo manga taking place centering around Marie Antoinette and the French Revolution. And we primarily follow a woman named Oscar who has been raised as a man. But we are at a point in the series where her father expects her to become more womanly and not be a man anymore. And so he's trying to arrange her marriage and things like that. But she has someone she's in love with. She has two people she's in love with, technically. And we've got everything going on with Marie Antoinette and the French Revolution. And it's glorious. It is so glorious. I love it with so much of my being. There's a sample of the art, and on these first pages, they're always textured. And, you know, we're kind of in the middle of the series here, so I can only show you so much. Like, they have a couple pages, because these are collector's editions, that are, like, lightly colored, and then we go into just straight up black and white. But, you know, we're at a point where we're saying Port Andre. Those of you who are familiar with the series will know what I'm referencing here. But if you like historical romance, or if you like really dramatic, messy things, the Rosa Versailles is going to feed your soul. There will be 5 of these omnibuses total, but this is such an amazing piece of work. I believe the next one they're hoping will come out in, it might have even been October that they were hoping. But they're hoping to have the whole series released by the end of the year. So there will be 2 more omnibuses before the end of the year, if things go according to their plan. Lately with Udon, that's not been the case, but I will take whatever volumes come when they come. So that's that. I love the Rosa Versailles. Y'all just need to read it. Okay. I do have a whole reaction vlog for the first omnibus of this series. So you can go ahead and check that out if you want more specific details as to what's going on with Oscar and whatnot. So anyways, that is this video. It is long. I hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to sit here and gush and tell you more about my favorites this month. So if you like this format, definitely let me know down below. And I'm so excited to have been able to share all of this with you. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.